Welcome to Grace Romance Collection, your home for paranormal romance audiobook stories. You are listening to an audiobook titled The Alpha Who Rejected Me Twice. We hope you enjoy. Chapter 1. The Weight of the Crown. The scent was a cold, cruel hand. It slammed into Lyra before the armored vehicle even stopped. Lyra Vale didn't flinch. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm, but her face remained fixed, sharp, and professional. She looked out the window, watching the volcanic stone of the obsidian palace claw at the gray sky. The air thickened with the raw, dark scent of the packlands, pine needles, wet granite, and the distant, dizzying musk of pure, dangerous alpha. She wore a dark suit, tailored tight and treated with scent blockers. In fact, the fabric felt like armor meant to stop bullets, not old memories. Lyra was here as Madame Vale, the diplomat, an equal negotiator. She was not the heartbroken girl Kael had shattered 10 years ago. No matter how hard she tried to keep her mind on the peace treaty in her briefcase, her wolf, a shadow deep inside, began to pace, claws scoring against her ribs. Because of that, Lyra squeezed her fingers together, the pain a necessary anchor. She needed this treaty signed. She needed to race back to the quiet coastal town where her daughter, Lyra, was waiting. A nervous human driver cleared his throat. "We are at the inner gate, Madame Vale. It's quite imposing." Lyra just nodded. The obsidian palace wasn't a building. It was a scar on the mountain. Its Gothic grandeur mirrored the cold, lonely reign of the man inside. A reign he chose over me, she thought, the betrayal a bitter taste on her tongue. The gate guards, massive wolves whose golden eyes locked instantly on the car, gave her a chilling look. Lyra met their stare. With every heartbeat, she reaffirmed her initial goal: secure the peace, then escape Kael's world entirely. But then, the car passed through the final barrier. The moment they entered the king's grounds, the air changed. This time, it wasn't just the territory she smelled. It was him. The scent was a powerful, devastating current of sandalwood, ice, and undeniable alpha dominance. It was so close, so potent, that Lyra's carefully built facade flickered. The moment their eyes locked with the familiar, terrifying scent, her wolf went from pacing to a silent, desolate howl. The mating bond, a physical, living thing she thought she had killed, hit her with the shock of a lightning strike. She felt it, clear as day, that deep magnetic connection. As the wind shifted, she suddenly remembered Kael's face, pale beneath the blood moon, uttering the single fatal word, rejected. The car doors hissed open. Lyra took a slow, deep breath. A prayer whispered to her iron will. "I am the resilient survivor. I do not love this king. I will not break again." Without warning, a heavy shadow fell across the sun. Kael Darius Thorne stood there. He was broader now, colder, his golden eyes fixed on her with a shocking intensity that mirrored her own suppressed fury. He was deadly. His voice, a low rumble that resonated deep in her bones, cut through the stillness. "Madame Vale, you are late." Lyra met his glare, her own eyes glacial. "My apologies, Your Majesty. Traffic was unforgiving." As fire bloomed beneath her skin, she knew this wasn't just a meeting. This was a battle for her soul. Chapter 2. The Diplomat and the King. The great hall was carved from black granite, echoing the cold, lonely rain Kael carried. Lyra sat across the huge table from him, the wood feeling less like a political barrier and more like a moat. With a single glance, Kael dismissed the guards, his alpha command absolute. As the silence roared, Lyra gripped her briefcase. "We don't have time for your theatrics, Kael," Lyra stated, using his name to cut through his kingly authority. "I am here as a representative of the North Coastal Pax, not as your former—" "Not as the mate I rejected?" Kael finished, his voice controlled but thick with suppressed rage. His eyes blazed. Deep down, she knew the truth. The years had been rough on him. This throne has been cold, Lyra. What's worse, the moment I chose this crown, I condemned us both to 10 years of nothing. Lyra managed a short, cynical laugh. Don't mistake my presence for forgiveness, Your Majesty. I am here because the threat of a civil war is greater than my personal vendetta. That's why I walked away and built a life where I didn't need your power to survive. Instead of moving to the treaty papers, Kael stood, circling the table slowly, his movements predatory. The air thickened. She felt it, clear as day, his wolf's intent. Your survival has a new scent, Lyra, Kael challenged, stopping behind her chair. It's light, half-formed, and its alpha lineage. Tell me, Madam Vale, who do you protect now? Lyra froze. Her breath caught. This was the moment of danger. Before the words left her lips, she knew she had to lie. My life is my own, Kael. Focus on the signatures. But then, Kael wasn't looking at her. He was sniffing the air near her neck, his nostrils flaring. As the truth unraveled, a familiar but strange scent, a sweet, subtle mix of alpha and human, registered deep in his primal awareness. It was a scent he should know, but didn't. It clings to you like a shadow, Kael muttered, his hands gripping the back of her chair. It's the scent of my pack. It's the scent of blood. Just like that, the political tension broke. The mating bond, combined with the mysterious scent of Lyra, had shattered the cold professionalism. Kael looked at her, his expression twisting from anger to raw, desperate suspicion. With his scent in the air, Lyra knew the lie had failed. Next, she had to divert his attention, or her entire life would crumble. Chapter 3. The Inciting Incident. Lyra's mind raced, searching for any possible distraction. Meanwhile, Kael was still fixed on her, about to demand the truth of the new scent. As the silence stretched, she prepared to fight, knowing she could never tell him the truth in this hall. But then, the decision was violently taken from her. A deafening crack, the unmistakable sound of a high-powered rifle, shattered the stained glass window high above the hall. The bullet slammed into the black granite exactly where Kael's head had been moments ago. Ambush! Kael roared, his kingly discipline instantly snapping into alpha fury. Her body moved on instinct. The diplomat vanished. Lyra didn't hesitate. Without thinking, she launched herself sideways, tackling Kael to the floor just as a second bullet sprayed shrapnel across the table. In the span of a breath, they were entwined. Kael, massive and powerful, pinned her beneath him, not in a romantic way, but in the brutal necessity of protection. The Alliance! Kael hissed, his breath hot against her ear. Traitors inside the court! They want me dead to ignite the war you're trying to prevent. As if fate demanded it, the attack had forced the rejected mate and the guilty alpha into the most intimate of positions, fighting for their lives together. She didn't know what scared her more, the bullet fire outside, or the intoxicating protective musk of Kael's wolf filling her senses. The floor is compromised, Lyra yelled, pushing him up. We need a hard exit, Kael. Now! Kael didn't argue. He pulled her around, grabbing her hand with a force that was absolute command. As her wolf stirred, Lyra submitted instantly, their bodies working together with the seamless, ancient efficiency of fated mates. Which meant their diplomatic mission was over, and their war, the one between them, was now externalized. Kael led her to a massive tapestry, ripping it aside to reveal a small, hidden entrance cut into the stone. The king's escape route, he stated, his voice rough. It leads out of the palace walls. Next, we run. If the alliance is this deep, this throne is already poison. They plunged into the darkness, the palace chaos fading to muffled screams behind them. Lyra felt the warmth of Kael's hand in hers, a connection they had both sworn to bury a decade ago. Just like that, everything changed. They were trapped together, pursued by a lethal enemy and bound by a secret daughter Kael didn't even know existed. Chapter 4. Hiding in the Walls. The tunnel spat them out onto the edge of the ancient forest. Kael's voice trembled as he pulled Lyra into the shadows. Meanwhile, the palace chaos was already fading behind them, muffled by layers of thick, damp earth and stone. That night, the air was sharp with pine and the metallic tang of Kael's blood. Kael led them toward the forgotten hunting lodge. What followed was a painful, urgent trek. Despite that, the alpha dominance still radiated off him, a raw, powerful heat that made Lyra's skin prickle even as she fought to ignore the primal response. The lodge was a massive, crumbling stone structure, smelling of dust and disuse. Not only that, it felt heavy with history. Lyra's bones remembered him, remembering the youthful Kael who'd once brought her here on a secret date, promising this territory would be theirs. "Go to the fire, Your Majesty," Lyra commanded, her voice dry and professional. Kael's wound was slowing him down. Because of that, he sank onto a moth-eaten sofa near the cold hearth. His guard momentarily dropped. Lyra pulled a small, sterile kit from her diplomatic case, her resourceful human tools. As the silence stretched, she began cleaning the deep gash on his side. The closeness was excruciating. Her fingers, usually steady, trembled slightly as they traced the hard-won muscle of his abdomen. The space between them burned, not with anger, but with the raw, untamed current of the mating bond. "You're surprisingly good at this," Kael rasped, watching her face with a strange mix of suspicion and desire. His eyes blazed. 10 years among humans forces you to be resourceful," Lyra replied, tightening a bandage. "What's worse, the world doesn't stop bleeding just because your heart does." Before the words left her lips, she regretted showing that sliver of pain. Kael's voice trembled. "I've spent every day of the last decade regretting that choice, Lyra. Maybe it was fate, but I swore if I ever saw you again, I would—" "You would what, Kael? Reject me a third time?" Lyra cut him off, her gaze icy. Her heart skipped. "You made your choice. Power, which meant you lost me. Don't burden me with your guilt now. I have a life built on your absence, and I intend to keep it safe." Yet, she couldn't deny the painful, honest sincerity in his words. As the truth unraveled, she saw that his crown truly was a lonely cage. Still, the need to protect her secret was greater than the need to forgive. In the quiet that followed, Kael reached out, his hand hovering over her cheek. With his scent in the air, she couldn't breathe. "You are lying to me, Lyra Vale. I smell the control, but I also smell the denial. Because of that, I know the mate bond is still a living thing between us." Lyra stood up abruptly, breaking the tension. The tension broke with a painful snap. "It's irrelevant. Next, I need to find a secure way to contact my embassy to ensure the rest of my delegation is safe. We need information on the Alliance." This was her cover. Her true initial goal was whispering, "Is Alara safe?" But then, Kael's golden eyes narrowed, following her every move. That's why they couldn't stay here long. Their lives depended on trust, but their bond was built on the foundation of a lie. Chapter 5. The Alpha's Burden. Come morning, the confinement was absolute. The silence outside the lodge was heavy, too silent. Lyra was restless, needing to move, needing to do something to ensure Alara was okay. Meanwhile, Kael was positioned near the single window, his body taut with the strain of fighting the Alliance and the mating pull. Lyra watched him, seeing the subtle shifts in his jawline whenever his gaze swept the empty forest. He was a cold king, but a careful protector. "The Alliance is not just an opposing pack," Kael stated, his voice low. "It's a shadow council led by Elder Torvin. What followed was a planned coup designed to fail my peace talks and frame me for incompetence. They've infiltrated the highest ranks because they fear what they can't control." "Torvin," Lyra repeated, the name tasting like ash. "He always resented your father's diplomacy and feared your mate bond with a half-blood like me." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "You rejected me for the pack. Now the pack is using that same decision to destroy you. Isn't that the ultimate irony?" Kael's reaction was raw, not regal. He turned, his eyes glazed with pain. As the bond pulsed, Lyra felt the genuine weight of his burden. I carry that guilt like iron chains, because my father's murder taught me that vulnerability is a death sentence for a king. Not only that, I needed political stability more than a fated mate, and Torvin used that fear against me. Despite that, his admission pierced her armor. He hadn't chosen cruelty. He had chosen fear. Instead of pressing, Lyra moved to the crucial task. I have a contact, a handler in the human world. She can get us information and an extraction point. But then, the signal is weak here. I need a clear line. Kael immediately moved to the stone wall, pulling aside a disguised section of ancient tapestry. There's a ridge half a mile from here. A service line, cut off decades ago, runs beneath it. It should give you a clean signal. That's why we go at dusk. Next, you tell me who the half-wolf child is. Lyra held his gaze. She didn't know what scared her more, the truth coming out, or the intensity of the love in his eyes. She's someone important to me. She's safe. Trust me, Kael. For now, that's all you get. As the wind shifted, Kael studied her face, his features etched with frustration, suspicion, and a primal, desperate curiosity. But then, he nodded slowly. He had to choose her competence over his own immediate need for alpha knowledge. Just like that, trust was reluctantly established, and their goal shifted from simply surviving to executing a dangerous, covert mission. Chapter 6. The Primal Pull. Dusk descended, painting the forest in hues of violent purple and charcoal gray. As the sky darkened, the air grew thick with the coming night. The hike to the ridge was treacherous, forcing Lyra and Kael into unavoidable physical contact. Kael's powerful hand was constantly at the small of her back, guiding her over slippery roots, sending shivers through Lyra's system. She felt it, clear as day, the desperate, primal awareness of him. With every step he took, her wolf pressed forward, demanding the mating bond finally be acknowledged. They reached the crest. The moment their eyes locked, the raw sexual tension that had been building since their reunion exploded around them like heat lightning. "Stop looking at me like that," Lyra breathed, moving away to activate the small, satellite-enabled communicator. Her pulse raced. Kael closed the distance between them in 2 measured steps. She didn't know what scared her more, his alpha dominance or the vulnerability shining in his eyes. "Like what, Lyra?" Kael murmured, his voice low and ragged. "Like the king who is haunted by the sight of you? Or like the mate whose wolf is howling every time you take a step away?" In the echo of his voice, the desperation was raw. With his scent in the air, Lyra's carefully built fortress trembled. She hated that the taste of betrayal was still sweet when it came from him. Instead of arguing, Kael brought his hand up, his thumb brushing the corner of her lips. The space between them burned. "I've tried to forget you, Lyra. I've tried to silence the bond. But your touch, your scent, your fire. My bones remembered him, and no one else ever compared." As fire bloomed beneath her skin, Kael lowered his head, his breath hot against her ear. "I need to know, Lyra. Do you hate me?" Lyra's resistance crumbled. Her voice trembled. Before she could move, she confessed the terrifying truth that underpinned her decade of pain. "I hate that I don't hate you, Kael. I hate that I still want to lean into you and let you burn my damn walls down." In that moment, the control was gone. Just like that, Kael's lips crashed against hers, a collision of regret, longing, and furious denial. It was rough, urgent, and fueled by the undeniable force of their rejected bond. As the bond pulsed, Lyra kissed him back with the same consuming need. As if the world narrowed, nothing existed but the sharp, aching pressure of their reunion. But then, the small communicator in her hand beeped, a tiny, high-pitched interruption. Lyra broke the kiss, gasping, her mind snapping back to her initial goal. The signal was live. She quickly typed a coded message to her handler. "Is the package secure?" Use the codename. What followed was the immediate ping of a reply. Camila is safe. Lyra froze. Her world tilted. Kael's voice trembled from behind her, his tone instantly cold and predatory. Camila? He whispered, his alpha energy suddenly going cold and still. He spun her around, his hands gripping her shoulders, his eyes wide with shock and a sudden devastating knowledge. That was my mother's name. Tell me who Camila is, Lyra. Now, tell me the truth about the half-wolf scent you carry. The mating bond was sealed with a desperate lie, and the secret daughter, the true heir to the throne, was about to be exposed. The crisis had just become personal, political, and irreversible. Chapter 7. The Unveiling. Camila? Kael repeated the name, his voice a low, raw sound that was more growl than word. Her world tilted. His grip on her shoulders tightened painfully. He didn't move as a ruler. He moved as a desperate man. Tell me who Camila is, Lyra, and the scent, the young wolf scent you carry, he commanded, his eyes blazing. His heart skipped. Lyra knew the game was over. The kiss, the near confession, and now the codename. Fate had cornered them. As the truth unraveled, Lyra pushed the desperate, terrifying word past her lips. She's Alara, and Alara, she's your daughter. The silence roared so loudly that Lyra thought the mountain itself was listening. Kael released her as if she'd suddenly turned into fire. He stumbled back, shaking his head. Kael's voice trembled. No. You left. You were gone before the memory of my father was even cold. How could you hide this for 10 years? I found out after you chose your crown, Lyra snapped, the raw pain fueling her fury. I spent a decade hiding her scent, hiding my wolf because you taught me that power, not family, dictates survival, which meant I wasn't going to let you sacrifice her too. Yet the grief on Kael's face was devastating. He ran a trembling hand over his scarred jaw. 10 years, he muttered, the words thick with shame. 10 years I've lived with the lie that choosing this throne was necessary, but then the throne cost me a life I never knew I had. What followed was an emptiness no power could fill. Lyra watched, the cold control she'd relied on for a decade finally fracturing. His honesty was a balm, even if the pain remained. As the bond pulsed, she felt the powerful, paternal love surging through him for a child he'd never met. But then, Kael's eyes narrowed, shifting from grief to pure alpha command. He realized the scope of the danger. The Black Fang Alliance. They want me dead to ignite chaos. That's why they will never accept a hidden heir. Next, they will use her to destroy my rule. Before either could speak another word about the devastating truth, a sound drifted up from the valley below, the telltale synchronized cracking of dry twigs under the hurried boots of trained trackers. Without warning, they were no longer alone. The Alliance had found the ridge. They found us! Kael roared. They smelled the heat of the bond. Just like that, everything changed. We run! Chapter 8. Hunted in the Stone. They're professionals, Kael hissed, his wolf now fully alert. His instincts surged. He grabbed Lyra's hand and they plunged down the reverse slope of the ridge. As her wolf stirred, Lyra matched his pace, moving through the undergrowth with silent, desperate speed. Meanwhile, the palace chaos was replaced by the terrifying, organized sounds of a professional hunt closing in. Because of that, Kael didn't argue when Lyra, spotting a small, hidden drainage entrance, pulled him toward it. The shadow cave, Kael grunted, recognizing the ancient pack marker above the narrow opening. It's deep inside the moonlit mountain, impossible to find without alpha blood. More importantly, its stone is scent dampening. They squeezed through the opening, landing in a dark, cold passage. The space between them burned with the urgency of their situation. Lyra's bones remembered him, remembering the youthful Kael who'd once promised her this territory would be theirs. Now, it was their only grave. With every heartbeat, Lyra felt the energy draining from Kael. His wound was reopening. As a result, she slowed, pulling him into a small alcove. "I will not drag a bleeding man into a hostile situation. You need my help now, because I can stitch this up enough to buy us time." Despite that, Kael refused to stop. He pressed a small, rough stone into her hand. "It's a sonic flare. If we split, use this if they corner you. Next, you take the lead, Lyra. Your human knowledge of infiltration is better than my military training here." In that moment, Kael didn't just ask for her help, he acknowledged her core strength. That's why Lyra nodded, relief washing over her. She felt it, clear as day. He was shedding the alpha ego for the sake of survival. They ran deeper into the mountain's heart. But then, they heard a terrible sound echo down the tunnel, the unmistakable snarling of wolves entering the outer passage. "They found the entrance!" Kael roared. Lyra's heart skipped. She didn't know what scared her more, the rogue wolves gaining on them, or the fact that she was running toward an unknown future with the man who had abandoned her, now trusting him with her life. Just like that, they dove through a final massive slab of granite, plunging into the vast, silent security of the shadow cave. Kael slammed the slab shut. The tension broke, but only momentarily. They were safe from the hunt, but now faced a more intimate, terrifying conflict. Chapter 9. The Shadow Cave Sanctuary. The Shadow Cave was vast, smelling of damp earth and pure, ancient magic. Kael lit a small, carefully shielded fire. By the time they settled, making a small nest from dry leaves, Lyra pulled out her last vial of human scent blocker and applied it to her clothes, praying it was enough. Meanwhile, Kael used his specialized alpha senses to check the perimeter, his body a map of tension. As the air thickened, Lyra knew they couldn't stay silent for long. They had to get Alara. Then Kael sat beside Lyra, his gaze intense. "I have to get her here, Lyra, my daughter. I will not lose my daughter, because she is my redemption." Lyra placed a hand on his cheek. With every step he took, he was shedding the armor of the king. "We will. But first, you must understand the risk. Alara is 10, Kael. Her alpha power is manifesting. It's unstable. What followed was a quiet, definitive commitment. She needs us both to survive." As the truth unraveled, Kael absorbed this, his eyes widening with realization. That's why the scent was so strange. The human blood, it amplified the alpha. Not only that, this power, untamed, could be tracked by any advanced enemy. But then, their intimate, urgent conversation was interrupted. Alara, safe with Lyra's handler, was now emitting a signal. She felt it, clear as day, a faint, silvery blue light pulsating visibly around her small body, a sound that resonated deep in Lyra's wolf ears. Kael's voice trembled. "That is her alpha power, Lyra. It's amplified. It's drawing energy from the very stone around us, which meant our sanctuary isn't safe for her." In that moment, Lyra and Kael realized the terrifying new layer of the conflict. Alara was not just the prize, her power was the beacon. As if fate demanded it, Kael pulled Lyra close, his lips brushing her temple. "We fight this together, shared war, shared crown." Next, they would formulate a plan to retrieve Alara, their true heir, even if it meant publicly sacrificing Kael's crown to draw the king's hunter away. Chapter 10. The Retrieval and the Alpha's Promise. The old shipping yard smelled of salt, diesel, and the anxious fear that clung to Lyra's embassy contact, who believed they were retrieving sensitive state assets. By the time Lyra and Kael arrived, moving under the cover of a thick, cold marine mist, Kael's jaw was tight. "She's in the 4th container, coded Camilla," Lyra whispered, gripping Kael's hand. "More importantly, be gentle. She's only 10. She knows nothing of wolves or kings." Kael, stripped of his alpha furs and crown, was coiled with tension. He didn't move as a ruler. He moved as a desperate father. "I've waited a decade to hold you again, Lyra. I didn't know I was waiting a decade to meet my heir." As the bond pulsed, Kael squeezed her hand, a gesture of shared terror and hope. They found the container. Without warning, Lyra slid the latch. Elara sat inside, small and resolute, clutching a worn toy wolf. She had Lyra's deep, dark eyes, but her hair was the same impossible shade of dark bronze as Kael's. The moment their eyes locked, Kael's breath hitched. His voice trembled with a mixture of shock and profound recognition. "Elara, this is Kael. He's the reason we're safe now," Lyra said gently, sinking to her knees. But then, Elara looked at Kael. With a single glance, the air inside the container thickened palpably. A faint, silvery blue light flickered around her small hands, humming with an energy that Lyra knew was her latent alpha power. Kael froze, his own alpha wolf recognizing the raw, unique strength of his heir. Instead of fear, Kael dropped to one knee, meeting Elara's gaze with the deepest sincerity Lyra had ever seen. "I am Kael. I am your father, and I am honored to finally meet you." As if fate demanded it, Elara, sensing his truth, leaned into him. The silver light vanished. Just like that, the family unit was formed, impossible and whole. The tension broke, replaced by overwhelming relief. But then, Kael's satellite phone, the one Lyra's handler had provided, pinged. The message was coded, frantic. Message: Alliance tracked the codename. They know the child is the heir and is emitting power. They are sending the hunter. The king's hunter is a mercenary, Kael, and she knows your pack's weaknesses. Lyra's heart skipped. The brief safety of the reunion was over. She felt it, clear as day, which meant their success had only painted a larger target on their backs. Next, they had to run again, but this time the enemy was professional, armed, and ready to exploit Kael's past. Chapter 11. The Hunter's Trap, Midpoint Shift. "We move now," Kael ordered, his alpha command absolute, his face pale with a new kind of dread. Because of that, the shipping yard is compromised. They know she's with us. They drove deep into the ancestral lands to a small, isolated stone cabin, the last place Kael had confided in anyone outside his immediate family, the old Alpha King's sanctuary. Meanwhile, inside the cramped, scent-proof cabin, Kael was fighting his guilt. "What is a king's hunter?" Lyra asked, her voice tight, holding Elara close. Kael looked defeated. "A king's hunter is not a wolf. It is a mercenary employed by the Elder Council to eliminate threats to the throne, including rogue Alpha Kings. Not only that, they use advanced tech and knowledge of the pack's vulnerabilities. Someone who knew me intimately must have hired her." As the air thickened, Elara, scared by the tension, began to cry softly. A low, vibrating hum, the sound of her latent power, began again. But then, a familiar antique music box Kael kept on a shelf, a gift from his chief advisor Torvin, began to vibrate faintly. Without warning, Lyra snatched Kael's phone. An encrypted text message was sending. Message: "Power surges detected. Hit the Alpha where he hurts. Use the mate. Sanctuary located. Coordinates attached." The tension broke with a horrible realization. Torvin, the leader of the Black Fang Alliance, had planted the music box long ago. Kael's voice trembled. "They used a piece of my past to track the power of my future. To make things worse, Torvin knew this music box was from the last person I trusted before I made the choice to reject you." Kael's face was etched with self-loathing. In the echo of his voice, the terrible truth resonated. His own choices had created the trap. He looked at Lyra, his eyes resolute, his kingly ego finally dead. "They expect me to run and fight for Elara's scent. That's why I have to sacrifice something bigger now. I have to create a diversion they cannot ignore. I have to prove to the entire pack that I choose you over my position." Next, the stakes were defined not by their escape, but by Kael's ultimate, public, and shocking act of commitment. The hunter was closing in. Kael had to make the ultimate sacrifice to save his family. Chapter 12. The Alpha's Sacrifice. "They expect me to run and fight for Elara's scent," Kael repeated, his voice low and dangerous, his eyes gleaming with new resolve. He was no longer just the king. He was the mate, the father, the protector. That's why we won't run. Lyra stared at him, holding the silent, terrified Alara close. We are running, Kael. The hunter is coming. What is your plan? In the quiet that followed, Kael grasped her hands, his touch absolute and searing. I have to sacrifice the thing they want most, the position. I will make a public broadcast. I will reveal you, reveal the child, and abdicate the throne in favor of the pack elders, creating an instant, chaotic political vacuum. Because of that, the Alliance won't chase a runaway alpha. They'll rush back to the palace to fight over the crown. Lyra's breath caught. Her world tilted. You would give up everything? The crown, the pack, the only life you know, just to save us? You are the only life I know, Kael countered, his honesty stripping away 10 years of lies. I love you. I will not lose you again. He pressed a fierce, desperate kiss to her forehead. Just like that, my choice is made. Next, you take Alara to the old Moonstone retreat. It's neutral ground, disguised as a human nature reserve. It's the one place no alpha scent will travel. Meanwhile, Kael activated the sanctuary's hidden satellite uplink, a feature Torvin hadn't known about. The space between them burned with the finality of his action. He spoke directly to the packs, his alpha voice resonant, broadcasting over every protected channel. I have been betrayed by those I trusted. The Black Fang Alliance. Kael's voice boomed, thick with emotion, but commanding. For the safety of the pack, and because those who rule must choose love over fear, I step down. I name my true mate Lyra Vale and my daughter Alara as my only family. I refuse to rule a throne that costs me my soul. The tension broke. Kael cut the feed, his hand shaking. But then he looked at Lyra, a wild, free light in his eyes. He had lost his crown, but he had chosen his heart. As if fate demanded it, Kael placed a powerful alpha ward around the entrance, sealing the cave with magic only an alpha king could wield. The hunter will sense the ward. They will know I am gone. Go now, my queen. I will lead them on a false trail. Lyra's heart skipped. Tears streamed down her face, tears not of pain but of blinding forgiveness. We will be waiting for you. Don't fail me now, Kael. Without warning, she grabbed Alara and plunged into a secondary exit tunnel, leaving the powerful, vulnerable, and newly liberated Alpha King to face the consequences of his sacrifice alone. Chapter 13. The Alliance Reacts. The Moonstone Retreat was a grueling 2-day journey through winding human trails, but Lyra moved with the single-minded focus of a mother protecting her cub. Lyra's bones remembered him, remembering the touch of Kael's hand, the sound of his voice. With every step she took, she felt the agonizing emptiness where his presence should have been. Meanwhile, back at the king's sanctuary, the Black Fang Alliance and the king's hunter arrived, only to find the complex alpha ward sealing the empty cave. Torvin, the chief advisor, was furious. In the echo of his voice, his anger was deafening. The fool abdicated. He chose the half-blood and the whelp. That's why we can't let this stand. Find the mate. She is the key. The king's hunter, a ruthless, scarred woman named Rana, studied the ward with cold, professional detachment. The alpha is baiting us. He's leading us on a scent trail away from his true objective. More importantly, he knows we won't chase a rogue king when the throne is open. Our target shifts. We capture the mate and the heir. That will drag the Alpha King back, desperate to face execution. As the truth unraveled, Rana realized Kael's plan. She felt it, clear as day, the Alpha's selfless devotion. But then, she also sensed the vulnerability. The mother is carrying guilt over his sacrifice. She will slow down. She will check her contact points. Without warning, Rana issued a new order to her team. Don't chase the king. Find the woman's network. Hit her at her most vulnerable point, communication. Just like that, the hunter changed the game. Lyra, believing Kael's abdication had bought them safety, was about to make a fatal mistake. She had to contact her handler to confirm the safety of the Moonstone retreat and to check on Kael. By the time Lyra and Alara reached the final hidden entrance to the retreat, a small, unassuming human maintenance shed, Lyra was trembling from exhaustion and fear. Next, she pulled out her specialized communicator. The moment she activated the device, she was signing her own capture warrant. Chapter 14: The Betrayal and Capture. The Moonstone retreat shed smelled of earth and fertilizer, the perfect cover. Lyra knelt, her hand shaking as she typed the coded message to her trusted embassy handler. Alara, sensing her mother's terror, clung to her neck. With every heartbeat, Lyra felt the king's hunter closing in, but her need for Kael was greater. Lyra. Confirm safety of Moonstone. Status of Alpha King? What followed was an instant, devastating reply. The message wasn't from her handler. It was a single line of text, cold and triumphant. Rana. He's alive, but now you are mine. The hunter always gets her prize. Lyra's world tilted. The tension broke with a violent smash. The shed door exploded inward. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, Lyra shoved Alara behind a stack of crates, screaming for her to stay silent. But then, the king's hunter, Rana, was there. A figure of cold, lethal efficiency, flanked by 2 armed wolves from the Alliance. She didn't move as a ruler. She moved as a perfect weapon. I told you, mate, Rana clipped, her voice devoid of emotion. The hunter knows your weakness, your love, your fear for the Alpha. Lyra fought with the primal, desperate fury of a mother. Her body moved on instinct. She launched herself at Rana, not to escape, but to buy Alara time. She didn't know what scared her more, the betrayal of her network, or the fear that Alara would be taken. Without warning, Rana easily deflected Lyra, knocking her back with a non-lethal, high-tech stun blast. Don't waste my time. We need you to draw the Alpha King back for his execution. Lyra collapsed against the stone floor, her muscles locking up. Her voice trembled as she looked at Alara, whose face was stained with silent tears. Instead of letting them take Alara, Lyra made her final, terrible choice, the emotional climax of the act. She looked at the crates, then back at Rana. She's a half-blood. She's nothing. I am the Alpha's choice. Take me. I'm the only one who can bring him back. Just like that, Lyra sacrificed herself. Rana smirked, recognizing the ultimate weapon of leverage. Wise choice, mate. The throne will appreciate your cooperation. Next, they dragged the paralyzed, weeping Lyra from the shed. Alara, hidden but seeing everything, was left alone in the heart of enemy territory with the king's hunter holding her mother captive. The hunter had gained the ultimate upper hand. Chapter 15: The Dark Night of the Soul. The cell was cold, smelling of stale concrete and despair. Lyra lay on the floor of the Obsidian Palace dungeon, her muscles aching from the stun blast, her spirit fractured. But then, she heard the distinct mocking voice of Torvin, the chief advisor, outside the bars. The king's choice of queen is currently enjoying our hospitality, Torvin sneered. He abandoned his throne for you, Madame Vale. What followed was a brief moment of freedom that ended with your capture, which meant his grand sacrifice was utterly useless. Lyra's heart skipped. Torvin's words were meant to break her, confirming her internal flaw. My heart is a weakness, and true belonging is a lie. She felt it, clear as day, the crushing guilt. She had made a mistake. She had given in to love, and that love had brought her to this cold stone floor. Instead of answering, Lyra stared at the wall, refusing to give him the satisfaction. She didn't know what scared her more, the darkness of the cell, or the thought that she might never see Alara's brave face or feel Kael's strong embrace again. Meanwhile, deep in the ancestral forests, Kael was fighting a losing battle with his own sanity. The psychic pull of the mate bond, usually a gentle hum, was a blinding, agonizing siren scream now that Lyra was in distress. He tracked the pain, the cold stone, the faint scent of fear, and the overwhelming scent of his political enemy. Kael's voice trembled as he crouched by a stream, trying to suppress a full, guttural shift. His eyes blazed. "They have her! I failed! What's worse, I gave up my authority and gained nothing!" Despite that, the mate bond offered a final, desperate sliver of information. Lyra was alive, but she was sinking into despair. As the bond pulsed, Kael felt her resolve wavering. Next, he had to find a way back into the palace, the place he had sworn to abandon, to execute a desperate suicidal rescue. Without warning, Kael's fury erupted. He slammed his fist against the rock, his control snapping. His sacrifice had only confirmed the terrible cost of love. Just like that, the Alpha King, stripped of his crown, was preparing for a final, lethal charge back into the heart of his enemy's territory. Chapter 16. The unseen ally Kael ran for hours, driven only by the sharp, agonizing pull of the mate bond. By the time he reached the outer perimeter of the Obsidian Palace grounds, he was a feral shadow, exhausted, wounded, and burning with righteous rage. He was a weapon carved from shadow and steel. In the echo of his voice, he whispered a name into the night wind. Cyrus. Cyrus was Kael's lifelong friend and the former captain of the guard, a hardline loyalist Kael had foolishly dismissed years ago. Next, Kael used a hidden signal taught only to the royal family and the captain. A moment later, a figure emerged from the shadows near the ancient wall. Cyrus, his face etched with betrayal and concern. "You gave up the throne, Kael," Cyrus hissed, his voice low. "You gave Torvin exactly what he wanted. You chose that half-blood over your people." Kael's voice trembled with desperate honesty. "I chose my family, Cyrus. The pack was betrayed by Torvin years ago. That's why I rejected Lyra, because Torvin convinced me that choosing her was weakness. And just like that, everything changed. Now he has my mate, and he is hunting my daughter. I failed to protect them, but I won't fail to save them." As the truth unraveled, Cyrus saw the man beneath the king, vulnerable, heartbroken, and utterly sincere. He didn't move as a ruler. He moved as a desperate man. "Lyra," Cyrus muttered, his eyes narrowing. "She's the one Torvin always feared. More importantly, she is the only person who could unite the pack against Torvin's tyrannical laws." Instead of leaving Kael to his despair, Cyrus made his choice. "I still have men loyal to me inside the palace. They are waiting for the signal." What followed was a quiet, definitive commitment. "I don't serve the mate, Kael. I serve the king who finally learned what it means to be alpha. We go in at dawn." Lyra's bones remembered him, and now Kael's loyalties were returning. The tension broke, replaced by a fragile, terrifying hope. Next, Kael, armed with a new ally and a clear purpose, prepared for the final, desperate charge to save the woman he sacrificed everything for. Chapter 17. The Lure. Back in the dungeon, Torvin entered Lyra's cell, a wicked smile splitting his scarred face. He was a weapon carved from shadow and steel. "The Alpha King is coming for you, mate," Torvin crooned. "That's why we are moving up your execution. You will be broadcast publicly at the Blood Moon Gathering tomorrow night. Your death will serve as a powerful symbol. Reject the king who rejected his pack." Lyra pressed her lips together, refusing to beg. She felt it, clear as day. A sudden, sharp flare of pain from the mate bond. Kael was close. But then, Torvin brought a communicator to her ear. Without warning, the familiar, resonant voice of Kael came through the speaker, raw with desperation. Kael, VO. "Lyra, don't listen to him. I'm coming for you. Hold on, my queen." Kael's voice trembled with genuine love and fear. Lyra's voice trembled too, but she forced the pain out. She looked at the crates, then back at Torvin. She needed to ensure Alara was safe. Instead of a reply of love, Lyra chose one final, tactical sacrifice. "Go home, Kael. You chose your pack. I am a half-blood. I was always a mistake. Save your throne." She severed the communication line, lying with her last breath to protect Alara. The tension broke. Torvin laughed, a harsh, triumphant sound. "Perfect. She's broken. She has confessed her worthlessness. The king will come running to save the symbol of his shame. As the bond pulsed, Lyra knew she had lied, but she had secured Ilara's silence. Next, she prepared for the scaffold, praying Kael would hear the truth beneath her lie. The final confrontation was set for the blood moon. Chapter 19. The Gambit and the Confrontation. Deep in the dungeon, Lyra was dragged from her cell. The space between them burned with the sheer hatred of her guards. Meanwhile, above, the palace alarms began to shriek. The ancient, long-ignored fire alarm, a high-pitched, confusing sound. "Cyrus," Lyra whispered, a tiny spark of hope igniting in her chest. Torvin, watching the commotion, barked orders. "Ignore the fire. It's a diversion. Secure the Great Hall. I will not let the abdication be overturned." But then, the main doors to the Great Hall burst inward. Kael Darius Thorn, half-shifted, half-king, stood framed in the archway, his powerful body radiating untamed alpha energy. His eyes blazed. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, Kael's presence hit Lyra like a physical blow, even miles away in the dungeon. She felt it, clear as day, his love, his sacrifice, and his absolute defiance. Kael didn't hesitate. He seized the high-powered broadcast microphone Torvin was using for the execution announcement. With a single glance, his gaze commanded the few remaining guards and elders in the room. "Torvin is a traitor!" Kael's voice boomed across the internal palace network, cutting through the chaos. "He murdered my father to start a war. I have the evidence, and I have sacrificed my throne not for weakness, but because the true power of a king is the love he chooses." Torvin roared with fury, lunging toward Kael. What followed was a brutal, lightning-fast fight as Kael defended the broadcast, using his shifter strength to fight the former advisor's personal guards. In the dungeon, Lyra struggled against her binds. "He's doing it! He's sacrificing everything!" She realized the depth of his redemption. Next, she had to do her part. The hunter Rana was standing right behind her, watching the palace feed of the chaos with cold interest. Without warning, Lyra twisted, kicking hard at the stone wall. She wasn't fighting the guards. She was creating a distraction. That's why she screamed, focusing her newly accepted emotional pain into a physical, desperate burst of energy. "Rana, you were fooled. The heir is not here. She's at the retreat. Go, save your fee." Rana paused, suspicion flaring. "Another trap?" "No," Lyra gasped, leaning into the lie. "Torvin has failed. You need the child. Go." Just like that, Rana, the pragmatic mercenary, decided the fight for the empty throne was less valuable than the capture of the powerful heir. She ran, leaving the final high-stakes confrontation to Kael and Torvin, and leaving Lyra with one last terrified guard. Chapter 20. The Final Key. The lone guard, distracted by the chaos in the Great Hall and Rana's sudden exit, was an easy target. As her wolf stirred, Lyra focused her power into her wrists. She felt it, clear as day, the alpha energy Kael had shared with her during their lesson in the cave. With a single glance, Lyra snapped the chains securing her hands. The tension broke. The guard whirled around, shock widening his eyes. But then, Lyra moved like a blur, grabbing the fallen keys and locking him inside her former cell. Lyra ran, a fierce, determined light in her eyes. By the time she reached the central staircase, the sound of the fight in the Great Hall was deafening. Kael's voice trembled with effort and fury. Meanwhile, in the hall, Kael was facing Torvin, the traitor who had caused a decade of grief. The space between them burned with old pain. Torvin fought with the cunning of a snake. Kael with the raw, self-sacrificial power of a true alpha. "You killed my father for this power!" Kael roared, his shifter form battering Torvin against the throne itself. "And you threw it away for a half-blood!" Torvin shrieked. "You deserve to lose her, just as you deserve to lose this crown!" Instead of striking a fatal blow, Kael disarmed Torvin, holding him fast against the stone. "I choose my mate, I choose my family, and that is the only rule this pack needs to follow." Just like that, the remaining loyal guards surged forward, seeing the undeniable evidence of Kael's truth and Torvin's villainy. Torvin was overpowered. Kael looked up, bloodied but victorious, scanning the entrance. As the wind shifted, he scented her, not the masked diplomat, but the raw, pure scent of his mate. Lyra was standing there, framed in the archway, her eyes filled with love and war. Next, the final act, the culmination of their bond, was ready to begin. Chapter 21. The Blood Moon Climax. Lyra rushed into the great hall, her eyes locking on to Kael. He was covered in dust and blood, but victorious. Torvin lay defeated, guarded by Cyrus and the newly returned loyalists. But then, the heavy oak doors of the hall swung open, revealing the courtyard where the remaining elders and pack members had gathered for the anticipated public execution. As the sky darkened, a low, profound crimson light spilled over the courtyard. The blood moon was rising, casting everything in shades of deep red and shadow. Kael ignored the elders, his gaze fixed on Lyra. He held out his hand. As if fate demanded it, Lyra ran to him, grabbing his hand. The contact was a shockwave, a pure, unadulterated surge of mating energy that healed the ache of a decade. Kael's voice trembled but boomed with amplified alpha power, addressing the hundreds of wolves in the courtyard. Torvin is defeated. I exposed his treason. And just like that, everything changed. I abdicate the throne. I will not rule a kingdom that demands this sacrifice of soul. The crowd gasped. But then, Kael pulled Lyra forward, their bodies pressed together. I choose my true reign. I choose my queen, Lyra Vale. I rejected her for duty, but then she fought for me for love. She is the true strength of this pack. That's why I seal our bond here and now. Without warning, Kael dipped his head, claiming Lyra's lips in a deep public kiss. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, the action was more than passion. It was a defiant declaration. The mate bond sealed. Lyra felt the warmth of his claim spreading through her veins, painful but purifying. Forgiveness came like fire. The tension broke. Kael stepped back, his eyes locked with Lyra's. We are bound, stronger than fate itself. Next, I hand the future of this pack to the elders, the true, loyal ones. My journey is over. I choose my family. Just like that, the climax ended. Kael's self-sacrificing choice was undeniable. The pack, awed by the power of the bond and the evidence of Torvin's treachery, erupted not in chaos but in a fractured, hopeful silence. Chapter 22. Falling Action and New Equilibrium. Hours later, the sun rose on a newly secured palace. Torvin was locked away, and the loyal elders were already forming a provisional council. By the time Kael and Lyra emerged from the Great Hall, they were clean, dressed, and holding hands, equal and resolute. Meanwhile, Alara arrived, led by Lyra's embassy handler. With every heartbeat, Kael rushed to his daughter, swinging her high into the air. His voice trembled with genuine joy. You won, Papa, Alara cheered. No, we won, Kael corrected, looking at Lyra. Because of that, your mother saved us all. Kael's choice was absolute. He formally renounced the throne to the Provisional Council. What followed was a quiet, definitive commitment. Lyra, Kael, and Alara would leave the Obsidian Palace and return to the secluded life Kael had chosen for them, the Moonstone Retreat. Lyra's bones remembered him, remembering the touch of Kael's hand, the sound of his voice. She felt it, clear as day, the peace she had sought for a decade, finally found in the arms of the man who once destroyed her. As the truth unraveled, Kael was no longer the king, but he was finally whole. Despite that, the Alliance's mercenaries, led by Rana, were still at large. Next, Kael ensured the new council focused their resources on neutralizing that external threat, clearing his name, and securing the borders. Few years later. The scent of salt and pine filled the small, beautiful stone cottage at the Moonstone Retreat. The space between them burned with comfortable, settled love. Lyra stood by the window, watching Kael and Lyra, now 13, her latent alpha energy controlled and focused, laughing as they practiced a quiet hunt in the hidden forest. Lyra leaned into Kael, who came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. His scent was home. "I don't miss the palace," Kael murmured, his cheek resting against her hair. "I don't miss the crown. That's why you and Lyra, this is my true reign." Lyra turned in his arms, her eyes shining with love and acceptance. "We are bound, stronger than fate itself, Kael. We found light in the darkest of times." Just like that, she realized her internal flaw was fully overcome. Love wasn't weakness, it was the ultimate, enduring strength. They sealed their second-chance mating bond, stronger and truer than they ever imagined. Thank you for watching. For more of Out stories, please subscribe to this channel and also don't forget to hit the like button.